Hello and welcome to Uncensored Conservatism, episode 317. Today we're going to take a look at some international news that probably didn't make the headlines, and we're going to start here with our neighbors to the north. Canada, where Prime Minister Mark Carney is facing opposition from Indian groups over a plan to exploit minerals in northern Ontario. This is the same country where before a hockey game they remind the white people in attendance that they are on stolen land. So what is it, Carney? Economic development and investment or virtue signaling? Choose only one option. And this isn't very neighborly. A Pew Research poll out of Canada notes that 60% of Canadians view the United States as their biggest menace, not Russia or China. That's up from 20% in 2019. Of those Canadians, 75% said the U.S. was a threat to their economy. Now, I think they're just kind of pissed because a Canadian-based hockey team hasn't won a Stanley Cup in decades. The Brazilian Supreme Court issued a restraining order and search warrant against former President Jair Bolsonaro. They allege he was attempting to flee the country. Bolsonaro is an ally of President Trump. Soon after the announcement, the United States hit the head of their Supreme Court with visa restrictions. That's if he's ever going to come here. And it appears that the austerity measures of Argentinian President Javier Milei are paying off as they announced that the country's economic activity increased 7.7% in April of this year. This marks the sixth consecutive month of increased economic activity. So you hear that, Democrats? Austerity. Some good news. There is an Irish cartel called Kinahan that is involved in smuggling precursors for meth and fentanyl into the United States. The DEA has infiltrated the gang and has issued indictments, and it confirms suspicions in Ireland that the gang was involved in smuggling drugs into North America. Over 500 protesters took to the streets of Dublin to rail against the growing homeless problem in the Irish capital. There's an estimated 16,000 people living on the streets, and no surprise, a lot of them are migrants from other countries. The British government announced that claims for universal credit, or social welfare as we call it, has surged from 2022 to 2024 to over 1.26 million people. Fueling the increase are migrants and refugees, accounting for over 35% of the applicants. Some politicians and pundits are warning Great Britain that due to the influx of migrants, there ain't much vetting going on before they're greeted on British shores. Their main fear is that Islamic terrorists will get through, which is kind of like a duh. Thousands of Afghan refugees have been secretly allowed into Great Britain after a 2022 data breach leaking their names. A new resettlement plan was kept secret and managed to import over 4,500 refugees since 2023. The new plan and resettlements were kept even secret from the government. Go figure. And for what? Reports are that 20% of English students do not speak English at home as their primary language. The preferred languages are Bengali and Arabic. Lose the language, you lose your culture. You lose your culture, you've lost your country. And how's this for chutzpah? Mubin Hussein, the man who led a Muslim boycott against police investigating Muslim grooming gangs in South Yorkshire, England, has received the honor of an MBE from the government for services to, quote, integration and cohesion. This is the dude who told Muslims not to cooperate with the police. Dr. Atiya Sheikh and her husband Omar were sentenced to 10 months in prison. In 2020, they obtained personal protection equipment during the height of the COVID pandemic from the National Health Service and sold them in eBay, netting them over 8,000 British pounds. Sir Mark Rowley, shown here, head of the London police, recently said it was a shame that more black boys than white boys were being killed in the country's capital. Now, blacks make up only 13% of London's population, but account for 45% of all knife crimes. It's sort of like Chicago here, right? Rowley blames it on police tactics which wrongly target black people. Oh, come on, man. Seriously? Well, what can go wrong here? The British are moving to lower the voting age in that country from 18 to 16, saying that if you're old enough to work, you're old enough to vote. No, no. A report from the British government stated that in the first half of 2024, there were almost 2,000 anti-Semitic acts against Jews in the country. The report found that anti-Semitism was being normalized among the British middle class and was prevalent at university and the arts. Oh, gee, really? A British fishermen's museum has experienced pangs of guilt as they announced they would review exhibits that glorify colonization or the slave trade. Okay, these are frickin' fishermen, okay? Not slave traders. Don't tell me people left the North Sea and went to Africa to fetch them some slaves. Good God. King Charles will officially receive President Trump at Buckingham Palace when the president visits Great Britain in September. Traditionally, second-term presidents are not afforded a state visit and instead are invited to tea. This will break that tradition. Knightsbridge and Kensington are two of the richest parts of London, but they're falling on hard times and people are leaving. The reason is falling home values due to onerous taxation and increased crime, where there are roaming gangs preying on residents. The number of smash-and-grab thefts by gangs have left many residents in fear. In the United States, we call them residents, but in England, they're called junior doctors, and on July 25th, they're going on strike. The last time they went on strike, over 200,000 appointments were canceled. 2 years ago, they received a 23.4% pay hike to end that strike. This time, they're demanding a 29% increase. British subjects, according to a recent poll, believe their free speech rights are not being adequately protected and feel fearful of stating views that may be unpopular with the powers that be. Older white males without a college education feel this way the most. Police in Northumbria, England, will not wear trans or gay pride flags or merchandise at their annual gay pride parade after a judge ruled that doing so would violate their oath to remain impartial to all groups. Last year, they were seen wearing the rainbow on uniforms and cars. They were sued by an activist, so yay for that activist. French prosecutors have opened an investigation into X, formerly known as Twitter, over manipulating algorithms to support what they call foreign interference. Apparently, there's just a little bit too much free speech on X, not to the liking of the French government. French Prime Minister François Bayrou proposed killing two national holidays, Easter Monday and May 8th, which celebrates the end of World War II. This is proposed as a measure to decrease their mounting debt, and he's described the months of April and May and all the holidays as wreaking havoc on the country's banking system. So just be careful. The French like their holidays and vacations. French President Emmanuel Macron told a group of military leaders that Europe faces its greatest threat to democracy since World War II. This as he drums up support for increased defense spending by the French. All right, this is Pierre-Alain Cotineau, a French name if I ever heard one, and he's a far-left gay activist in France. Now he's being accused of using Xanax and yogurt to drug minors under his foster care and then sexually abuse them in a sadistic pedophile ring. One of the victims was a 5-month-old baby boy, and another was a toddler being led around on a collar and leash naked. I just have no words for this. In Nice, the main downtown area was closed for 12 hours so that police could move in and clear out the prevalent drug users. It's known as an open-air drug market where heroin addicts shoot up on the street and leave discarded needles, creating a health problem. Obviously, residents and shop owners have had enough. So the left was all pissed about Trump having a military parade in D.C., but France did him one better when they held a huge military parade in their capital on Bastille Day. French troops and an array of military hardware were present on the streets of Paris, and there wasn't any No King's Day protesters throughout France. And France actually had a king at one time. The crossing of migrants across the English Channel from France to Great Britain continues apace. Now has come to light that the French Coast Guard is handing out life jackets and bottles of water to the illegal migrants. And that's some French hospitality for you. French border police have finally been given the authority to arrest and detain migrants illegally entering the country. However, apparently they'll just assist the illegal migrants to leave the country in their journey to England. A court in France ruled against the government and declared that a woman from Gaza must be admitted under their asylum rules. The ruling clears the way for anyone from Gaza seeking asylum in France, stating that actions by the Israeli Defense Forces are a pattern of persecution. So Hamas, welcome to France. 51-year-old man from Morocco was found guilty of setting fire to 4 acres of forest that threatened 4 nearby homes. However, he was given a suspended sentence and set free. The man has a previous conviction for arson, indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, sympathizing with terrorists. He seems like a nice guy to set free in your country, and that's some French hospitality for you. Levi's, I guess, shown here from Cameroon, some African little shithole country, has gotten around in Europe, and he seems to like to drop concrete slabs on the head of unsuspecting people, many of them homeless. He's known in Switzerland and Holland for doing the same in France. Maybe he'll get some French hospitality through a suspended sentence and sent on his way. And just deport this dude out of Europe. Come on. The European Union has recorded more deaths than births in every year since 2012. Yet, they announced that the population of the EU has reached a record 450.4 million people. The main driver of the population increase is non-European immigrants. Police in a Dutch city arrested 3 men in an 8th grade musical performance to celebrate the end to the school year. They got into an argument when one pulled a knife and stabbed a teacher trying to break up the fight. I mean, taking a knife to an elementary school musical, this seems like it's kind of premeditated to me, but, I'm not a lawyer. A migrant from Yemen who arrived in Germany in 2022 managed to get his wife and 6 kids into the country a few months ago, and it's unknown if all these 6 kids are his, which may have prompted him to brutally stab the wife to death in her back and neck. Since arriving in Germany, she had a restraining order against the assailant for abuse. I think he ran out of the house covered in her blood. Anyway, Yemen, nice country. Reports out of Bavaria indicate that foreign nationals make up only 18% of that area's population. However, they account for 50% of all crime in the region and 43% of all sexual assaults. Turkish, Ukrainian, and Romanian foreign nationals were particularly singled out as the perpetrators. Germany deported 81 Afghans back to that hellhole after their asylum claims were denied. Further, all of the 81 deportees had criminal records and had entered Germany illegally. Yet here we protest sending scumbags out of the country. German education officials are debating whether to limit the number of immigrant children in schools. Here's the problem. The German-speaking families prefer to send their kids to schools not run by the government. So this idea is likely to go nowhere. Still, might be worth looking into. Who knows? Police in the German city of Essen arrested a Muslim man from Bosnia who was allegedly planning a terrorist attack or assassination in that country in the name of Allah. The man was fraudulently making purchases and reselling them at a profit on eBay to fund the attack. That's some Muslim ingenuity there. Officials in Germany report that the birth rate in that country has dropped to 1.35. The figure is even lower for women with German citizenship. The decline in the fertility rate is stirring concerns about social welfare programs and the culture of the country. So I've got an idea. Let's just import some more Muslims. Come on, German women. Start popping them out. Not only are birth rates declining, but now Germany's share of those living alone is above the EU average. Single-person households and lonely old people are concerning to the government, with loneliness being a mental health concern. I've got an idea. Why don't they just get married and have kids? But for the first time since 2018, Germany has seen a resurgence of people driving cars, probably alone, as the government reports that Germans drove 3 billion kilometers in 2024. That's about 186 billion miles. All right, this is Julia Klockner. She's like head of, no, that's not her. But Julia Klockner, she's a member of their German parliament and responsible for administration. I believe she's the president of the parliament. And she's battling the leftists and the Greens over inappropriate cultural symbols in offices. And she's going to war on the rainbow gay pride flag, demanding that they all be removed. She even called in the police when one lefty failed to do so. I mean, this woman means business. Officials in Berlin have decided to change the name of the allegedly racist Morin Street. The reason here, because Morin derives from the Greek word mor, which means dark or black, but it could also mean stupid or primitive. The new name will now be Anton Wilhelm Amo Street. Now, who the hell was he? He was the first African to receive a degree from a European university in 1734, so that's very, virtual signaling there. It's happening throughout Europe. A recent poll out of Finland reports that nearly half the population identifies as being politically right-wing and only about 31% on the left, with the rest in the center. Could this be a shift in Finnish politics? Could be, as only 1% of Finns now say they have very high trust in their politicians. Nearly half had little or no trust. These findings largely mirror those in Norway, but are considerably lower than those in Sweden and Denmark. Only 2 years ago, 16% reported they had a high degree of trust in politicians. Finland is enforcing a new law which bans anyone from Russia or Belarus from purchasing property in the country. This comes as tensions mount between Finland and Russia. Finland closed their borders with Russia previously, claiming that Russia was sending asylum seekers across the border deliberately to destabilize the country. Spain announced that they would begin to remove homeless people sleeping in Madrid's main airport terminals now that over 150 centers have been established throughout Madrid. There are about 400 homeless people, and the terminal has been dubbed Zombie City since most of them are zonked out on drugs or alcohol. So welcome to Spain. Staying in Spain, the sleepy farming town of Torre Pacheco was rocked with several nights of violent protests against illegal immigration in Spain. Police are blaming far-right agitators for the recent unrest. How did it get started? This guy right here is a retired pensioner known as Domingo Dominguez. He was assaulted and savagely beaten by 3 migrants from Morocco in Torre Pacheco. He had the misfortune of walking his dog by the man one fine Spanish night. Incidentally, a recent poll indicates 70% of Spaniards are in favor of deportations. And a 17-year-old girl in Spain is fighting for her life after being set on fire and sustaining burns over 95% of her body. The perpetrator is a 20-year-old man from Morocco in the country illegally awaiting deportation. He just claims they were smoking a cigarette together and the mattress caught on fire. Okay, yeah. A 42-year-old Egyptian man working at a hotel in Italy has been arrested and charged with raping a 15-year-old American tourist vacationing with her family. The family has since returned to the United States. Forensic and medical examinations indicate that the young girl was a virgin at the time. I guess he was getting a head start on those 17 virgins in heaven. Italian farmers are demanding the resignation of the EU president, Ursula von der Leyen, over that organization's agricultural policies, declaring her actions more damaging to European agriculture than any tariff imposed by Trump. And then, although not as bad as 2015, the number of migrants making it to Crete from Libya is on the rise again after Hillary Clinton fucked up Libya. However, Greece is showing signs they won't be dealing with that again, as rations have been reduced and several boat flotillas are being sent back. They also have no plans to open any more refugee centers. Ukraine announced that Russia had launched over 1,800 drones in the past week in the continuing war between those countries. The mass use of drones is intended to overwhelm air defense systems in place around major Ukrainian cities like Kiev. That's Kiev, not Kyiv. Screw that. Russia also announced that they will defend their interests in the Baltic Sea region after Estonia performed a HIMARS rocket test over the sea. Lithuania and Latvia recently obtained similar rocket systems that can reach a distance of 190 miles. France officially handed over the last of their military bases in the African country of Senegal. 2 weeks in a row with Senegal. French troops have been in that country since 1916. France is increasingly decreasing its military presence in Africa. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has suspended that country's police minister over allegations he colluded with a criminal syndicate to protect well-connected government people and interference in other high-profile police investigations. I mean, imagine that, corruption and black home rule in an African country. Japan is going to vote for their House of Councilors, and there's a resurgence in the popularity of right-wing parties. In particular, they want the government to do something about the Chinese buying up properties, shady foreign workers, and rowdy tourists in Japan. Specifically, they want a quota on tourists every year. And finally, out of Australia, a win for common sense. A judge there dismissed a suit brought by local climate change activists on islands in the Torres Straits. They claimed the government did not do enough to protect them against the ill effects of climate change. The judge basically told them to take it up with Parliament and leave the courts out of it. That's it for today. Have a great day and a more pleasant tomorrow.